One of the interesting things about what we do is every church is unique in its own way. Everything's different. I could be in a church a mile down the road, exactly the same fabric, and nothing will be run the same. The window will be different. Everything's different. And the reason being for that is that, so a historian told me, is that they used to do a metre when they started building the church. They would then go to another parish, start another metre, and that poor mason that started this one would never get back because of the time it took. They'd outlive him. They used to go up in metres throughout the parishes, and then in the middle of each church would be a shed, and that would be a chapel, and that would go up and over time. So, and there are remnants of it at a church in Harrington. We can still see a sort of footprint of a piece of timber. So just like a normal shed, basically, where you can still carry on worshipping throughout. Heritage and looking after. Now, I've spoken to architects about many things on these buildings, and to be honest, it's far easier for me to show you outside in front of the fabric than it is to be talking about it, and you'll get some sort of idea of what actually we're called in 99% of the times on churches. It's normally roofs and it's cementitious pointing that absolutely ruins the fabric. Back in the 50s and 60s, it was a big fad. Cement came out, everyone said, cool, this material goes off in a matter of hours, that will glue it all together. No, it doesn't allow the building to breathe. Hence why I'm always employed, because I have to go and take it all out. So, basically interfering, and that's what you've got a lot of on here. You've also got remnants on this particular church, so it looks like it had a rendered face many moons ago, because we're finding lime plaster on the exterior, and the architect, where we were going to chop out all the cementitious pointing, has actually decided that we're now going to conserve it to make sure that it looks like it did, but without that being too intrusive. Because when you do take out cement pointing, it does cause a lot of damage. It really does. And when you've got clunge windows, a specific stone that you've got on these, when the cement gets in it, it fractures the stone and makes it friable. Hence why Mark will go in and we shelter coat it afterwards. So we inject it with something called nano lime, which is a very fancy way of basically gluing the stone back together, and then we preserve it and put a coating on it that will outlive all of us for that sort of duration. So that's another part of what we're doing up there. And your roof, your spire. So it's been stripped and the timbers are all flapping. So none of it was crowning at the top. It was literally, as soon as the actual tiles came off, it allowed it just to start going like this. And the timbers are all rotting. So we are now putting in sections of new oak up there to tighten it all back in, put a new crown in. Again, sounds a lot more complicated than what it is. It's not dangerous, it's nothing like that. That's what I always have to sort of express to people. It's not dangerous, but it's the highest point of the church. Obviously, it needs sorting. You don't want nothing coming down from there. And also, you obviously having new gutters and downpipes up there, so we can get the water away. Because again, that's another thing. The falls, when they done them all up on that roof, the water sits in it. Well, it's only got one way to go. It's going into the building, and it's the same ground level. You'll see in a lot of churches, I can see sort of signs of it here, where what they did back in the 70s, that they would have chopped off the bottom, and instead of lime rendering it, would have been done cement. So, as I've just explained, really, the cement is then trapped in metre thick walls, 800mm thick walls. It's got nowhere to go. So that's when you see all your plaster blowing off on the insides. So we have to go in a lot of the time, take it off, allow it to breathe for years, absolute years, because it's penetrated so far in. So all manners of things. Beautiful buildings, a lot of upkeep, as you all know, and it's a lot of money. It's a very costly job to keep maintaining these, but there are things that can be done by yourselves, like cleaning gutters and valleys and not letting weeds grow up and things like that. All little things that actually help the building stay in good order and doesn't cost costs a little bit of time more than anything. It's not so much getting a contractor in, but it saves thousands over the course of time and years. So that's pretty much the sort of fundamentals in it. So we are up the top. We are raking out and repointing a lot of the cementitious pointing, where the architect wants it done because of the access. Obviously, scaffold is one of the most expensive parts of what we do, getting the access up there, and you don't achieve nothing with it, obviously. It's not there to get us up there to do it. So, and then there's this render conservation. So, there's a myth about this. I'm not really quite. Some architects think that all churches, back in the day when they were built, had a rendered face. History tells me that when they built, especially out of flint that you've got here, is when they laid it, they just coated up. So it looks like a render, but it's not being put on like a plaster. It doesn't ever seem to, because you've always got stones grinning through. So I think it was just a classic case of putting a barrier up to get the water to hit the wall and come straight off. And it's when it starts recessing badly, is when we get called into what we call a tower point, which is to fill the joint fully up so it's flat. So anything that hits any side of the tower can actually come down, can come straight off, rather than sit in the pockets of stone, get a freeze, blow, which is very common. Again, an expensive process, because to actually do an entire tower point on a tower is hundreds of thousands of pounds. So normally what an architect will do is the top bits that require high level scaffold, they normally do sort of like the 3 or 4 lifts coming down, and then when money's saved again, and then we come back and the scaffold hasn't got to go so high. So, but that's, again, I can show you that outside. So, but yeah, I mean, what I can tell you at the moment is we haven't had any dramas on here, which is always nice to sort of explain. Everything is moving swimmingly. All samples have now been approved, so we can actually now start putting everything back together. It's not as bad up there as what was first thought. We always have to have a contingency up there that we might find something, like hence the roof, the spire, when them timbers are flapping. There's a contingency in for it. So it doesn't cost the church any more money, it just means we move things around. And something that might not be that important, now you're sort of standing in front of it, can then go up onto the roof and make sure that's belt and braced up and watertight, etc. So there's a lot of work happening to your louvers, like new fins and new louvers themselves. I think if we go out now, I can sort of show you on the ground floor what the main problems are. But obviously I can't take up scaffold, I'm afraid. My insurance wouldn't allow it, but there are elements around the church that can show you exactly what we are doing up there. And we're putting together photographic evidence and like a programme which we will give to Natalie at the end and Mark, obviously. And so you'll see our progress in some shape or form. And obviously when the scaffold comes down, I want you all to come up to me and say, where's all that money gone? Because that's the biggest compliment you can pay me, is that you can't really see where I've been. That's the restoration rule, that is, to be fair. And just on another note, something that we are doing up there, which I know you won't be able to see, and it's been our tedious, isn't it? So to preserve the render that we've got up there, we're having to inject it. So we find a little hole, so say for argument's sake a sort of B hole, and we're having to put down lime grout behind to tighten up all these bits of render. So you can imagine how laborious that is, where you're going around with a syringe, and that is literally it. I mean, when I ordered them off Amazon, I think they must have thought I had a problem, because I had to put boxes on them. And we're just going around and injecting. So that's something that you won't, when that scaffold comes down, you won't see large areas of render because we've consolidated it. We're trying to keep your church looking exactly as it was. But please, if you do come up and see us and say, I can't see where you've been, I'll say that's a big compliment to us, a very big compliment. You will naturally see our pointing, because it will take a few years to tone down. We've tried to colour match it, but you're never going to get exactly the same as something that's had trees and vegetation on it for years and years. So, but it will dull down. It's not going to be like a lighthouse. It's not going to be a beacon. it will be very sort of subtle. But yeah, that's pretty much sort of, you know, where we're at with your church at the moment. And now we can progress and now samples have improved and get on.
When would you say was the turning point away from modern materials to traditional materials?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. It's a great. It involves all the time.
Yeah.
So when the cement came in, which has been the big problematic material, every church, there's no church that hasn't got it.
Yeah.
So that was really 50s, 60s when they started mass producing houses again, and that's when they brought them onto the churches. Now, lime sort of came in the 80s. That sort of started shifting in, and there's so many different types of lime. So there's a lime putty, there's a 3.5 NHL lime, and all various strengths. They're all different strengths for different areas of church. So like high level, we use a 5. It's an NHL 5, which means it's watertight. You know, the higher you go, it's better for taking all the water, and you do copings and things in it. But then what happened is the 9, 2 and 1 mix, in answer to your question, so when they started building houses in lime, they were still adding a white cement. Kind of like, so you're using the lime, so it's supposed to breathe and move, but they were chucking in a gauge of cement, kind of like was working against each other. So it started cracking. In the last 5 years, hot lime is making a complete resurgence. It's not nice stuff to use. We're using it on here, but we use it as an additive, like what we call a pozzoline, which is a material to basically soften the lime. Because even NHL 3.5, which is pretty much standard through our board, is actually as hard as cement when it goes off. When it actually cures and dries, it's as hard as cement. The hot lime is traditionally supposed to be used for the meter low, because what that will do is it gets up to 200 degrees, doesn't it? When mixed, it goes up to 200 degrees, and what it's supposed to do is draw out. It's a quicker process of drawing out the damp. Again, it takes 15, 20 years to actually put it out far enough. So I always say something. So we always blame the 50s and 60s for the cement. But at the time, all architects and all trades were using it. I dare say in another 50 years' time, what I use will be wrong. More than likely, there'll be something else that'll come in, or it will turn round. And the main objective of lime obviously is breathe and move with the building. This building moves. Cement tightens it up. That's another problem. That's why you'll see big cracks in buildings. It's the cement normally. It's not the lime, because the lime is designed, if you've got any movement, is to allow it to move and breathe. So, but yeah, that's pretty much the cut and dry of it, really. So it's pretty much that. And then, do you want to go outside and let me show you some of these horrible cement areas? Lime render. This is like what we are consolidating and saving. And this is the horrible cement patches that are all the way up there, as you can hear, solid hard.
Yeah.
More likely, when we chop this out, or if we were to chop this out, we'd lose all the flints. That's what we're minimalising, because it's against field flint. So what we do is we take this area out that goes against the stone. This is sort of like the architect's approach, so that directly isn't attached to that. Whereas, and that's sort of like, that's what we're sort of trying to get. But this, and then the lower down, so all of this is what we're injecting. That, what I was telling you, that arborist process of like where we see a hole like this or a hole like this, we have to get our syringe down and put lime grout behind it, so it tightens this up so it doesn't fall off, and there's no penetration for water and frost to get in. But that is just a classic. That's a classic example of what your entire tower is made of. Areas where it's actually pulled away, like this is tight, so we call this tight. So like I say, there's no need for that to come out. It's not causing any damage. Will cause more damage getting that out. But where up 5 or 6 lifts up on the scaffold, it's actually pulled away. And so the architect will then instruct us to take that out and repoint in lime. But areas all the way up, like all of this render, this then gets made out so we can get a full finish on it. Hence, when the water hits like this, it just comes all the way down, and just hopefully hits this, gets in your gullies, and you've got an entire new soakaway system going in here that ends up out in that path out there, obviously with a new downpipe because of the new box gutter up the top. So that's 2 metre by 2 metre up there. So, but yeah, that's basically, that is in a nutshell. So if it's not coming away, leave it. If it's coming away, let's chop it out and put the line back in and let it breathe. So. And then anything below here, there's the horrible, real dark grey cement.
Yuck.
Again,
What,
the architect won't
you'll
make us.
leave that?
Yeah, the architect won't make us take that out purely
Is
because
there
of
much
damage.
crumbling?
No, it's not. But that's where you would then use a hot lime if you were to chop that out.
Right.
These areas basically, they're just not causing any trouble. They're not nice, they're not right, but they're not causing trouble. And because they're low level, she'd rather access the high level, which I totally get because it's a lot of money to get up there. So,
Indeed.
but we have come. I think we've come right the way. I think there's about 4 lifts from the top that's getting pointed, and then it's all render conservation, low level. So yeah, it's a good example. There's a.
So is it a mixture of sand and lime that you use?
So yeah, so our mixes that we're using here is 3 sharp coarse sand. We then use equal parts, 1 part NHL 3.5, and then 10% hot lime. And the 10% hot lime is to make it go soft, like I said. That sort of allows a bit more. Yeah, allows a little bit more breathable in it, and then 10% lime, 10% chalk, with just ground up chalk. And you've got areas as well where they've put little fragments of clunch in, so we will be doing that as well. So it's quite a
Mixture.
It's quite, yeah. But what you have to be careful of is you don't add too many things, because then your ratios will go. Ideally, that's why you only want the 10% in. You're not putting a full gauge in, because then you've got to adjust something else, and it all gets sort of very messy then. To make these biscuits, basically, for the architect.
Oh, for the
Yeah, for the colours. And then what she does is she breaks them up, and then she comes so you look at the colour on that. We're not a million miles off.
No.
You know, you're never going to get this 100%
Exactly,
because it's got
because
so
it's
much.
warm with weather.
Yeah, and plus obviously being on the north.
So when we put the muck
So
in, when we put the
we have
water
to
in,
trial
it's- because obviously we
different
use
types
the
of
flat
limes. One's
layout,
come from
flat.
Italy, one
But then,
comes from
like I say, we get the-
France, one comes. Like I say, it's a science.
This
It's an
area.
absolute science. Yeah, it is. Honestly, it's you know, you feel like you're a mad chemist sometimes. This is what I always say, because a lot of the quarries when these were built don't exist anymore. So I'm not in agreement where you're bringing sands from other areas, like from Cornwall or Dorset or somewhere like that. I always think you find the local sands, and then you adapt your ratios to suit. Because if you go to Northampton, it's very ginger, the sand. If you go up to Lincoln, it's very red. And then we're quite sort of Huntingdon, Hertfordshire. Them sort of areas, it's blonde. Then you go out to sort of Cambridge, it could be bright white. So as soon as you can imagine a bright white sand and then adding lime to it, you might as well paint the wall white. It's that white, yeah. Every day's a learning day.
What?
Right.
Every day. We could, like I say, we laboriously inject this, and this side it will take. You go around, just go around the corner. You do exactly the same.
On the top of the tower.
Completely different in the space of a metre, let alone another church. So
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
no, so yeah, that is pretty much your tower. That is pretty much it. And when it all does finally come down, you'll just see some bands, and hopefully we'll blend it all in. Well, we also have to be quite ruthless with something like this.
I mean, it's so corroded.
So where
you see the
if we go around and inject everything,
disappeared.
you're moving a problem. I might say that's why you can see when I flick something off like that. It looks harsh, but I'm actually trying to get a big enough gap for the actual grout
Will
to
you
get
take
in.
that out or just inject?
That'll be injected, and then when with our new mix, I'll pull it in.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so it's consolidated, and then it's covered and blended into the actual structure. Something that we're doing on here that's really sort of coming of age now. So when we talk about using new material and how long do they take a fad, we're using something on here called nano lime. So when you have a clunch window, which is the stone, you can't get it anymore. There's no quarries, they don't quarry it anymore at all. So people are very reluctant to cut it out and put an equivalent stone in. A lot of architects would rather us try and repair it. We call it plastic repair. So what this does is, it's great, it's really good. We've just done it at Ickleton Church, just before I came here. And you inject this liquid, and it all goes behind it, and it's just like water, but as soon as it hits the stone, it's got a chemical reaction, and it pulls it tight, and it allows us then to go over it with a mortar repair so that we can reshape the look of the stone and sort of like make it look as good as new. And then Mark will then come behind me when I've done that, and he'll apply 3 coats of shelter coat on there, which is the same colour as clunch, exactly the same sort of colour as clunch, but then gives it an added protection. And like I say earlier, it will outlive all of us, the shelter coat. And it does look nice. It doesn't look brand spanking new, but it just gives it a new lease of life. But knowing that nothing's going to fall off of it, because clunch it's a horrible stone. It's an awful stone. And it's got big pyrites in it, big lumps of iron. As soon as they pop, the whole lot goes. Yeah, and it's not nice to work either. It's nice to fix, but it's not nice to work in. And it chips very easy. You've only almost got to look at it. So,
church we done in Ickleton, near the other side of Saffron Walden. These were clunch stones around the outside of the clerestory windows here, and they've all been shelter coated, just to preserve them for time. So it doesn't look, like Dave said, the colour doesn't look any real difference. It's just a sacrificial coating on top of the stone.
and you can match all stone a shelter coat of a colour.
With this nano?
Yeah. Well, this nano line goes in behind the
Oh, right.
behind the
okay,
stone,
and then
yeah.
Another.
And then the shelter coat obviously protects the face of the stone. Yeah. And after we've done what we call a plastic repair, which is a lime-based fine mix that we can build out using armatures, which are little stainless steel rods and wires, so that you're not just putting it into a hole; it's binding. It's sort of like a little, like little threads. And you just make this little wire thing up. So some of it can be. I know you're looking. Yeah. It is. It's and they all have to be drilled in. They all have to be glued. You have to use special glues.
Time consuming.
It is, yeah. It is. It's very time consuming, And this job, really, to be honest, was down for a point. This is what this job was until the architects actually got up there. We were going to be coming almost halfway down, wrapped from the top, but it wasn't in as bad a condition. And again, it just keeps going back to that bit of keeping this in, because we will cause more damage.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't want to do. And then
Especially around where we live in Cambridgeshire, Barrington, where the cement works was,
saved quite a bit of money.
they got a lot of country there, and Burwell as well, which is towards Newmarket. They would, that was quite a common stone now. You can't get it.
It's sad sometimes.
All we've got out of the yard is like gold dust.
Ah, yeah. Have you heard of the expression clunch? Yeah.
So it's in good hands, and it's not as bad as what I think anyone thought, to be honest,
That's good.
which is always a plus point. Yeah. Sometimes it goes the other way.